Nun Hey, and it's the bottom line of Nun Dalet Amid Aleph. The Mishnah was describing that the Beis Hamikdash was so lit up by the Ezra's Noshim, there was no small courtyard in Yerushalayim that could not benefit from the light of the Beis Hamikdash. So far, far away, you can. It was like a broad daylight. Tana, we learned in a brisa. You turn the page. Hold on. Let me just. Tana, we learned in a brisa. Hold on, I'm just turning the page. Okay, now on top of Nun Gimel Amad. Isha Hoya Beretim Shel Beis HaShe'eva. A woman was able to choose and select from the light of the Beis HaShe'eva. A woman could be in her kitchen at night, and from the light coming from the Beis Hamikdash, she was able to select wheat, and prepare food. And it doesn't mean that she actually did that, because you're not allowed to benefit from the light for personal use. But she potentially could have done that, and that's what the Gemara is. How lit up the Beis Hamikdash was for the celebration of Simchas Beis HaShe'eva. The Mishnah, the Gemara says, Chasidim va'anshi Maisa. Second line from the top, that there were Hasidim and great people that would celebrate by saying speeches and praises to God during the celebration. So what did they say? The Mishnah doesn't just say that. The Gemara elaborates. Tanu Rabbanim. Yesh mehem amrum. There's some great people that would say, Ashrei Yalduseinu Shleibishu Es Ziknusenu, that lucky that our youth did not shame our older years. In other words, we never did an Aveira in our youth, so that we'd have to look back and be ashamed of our youth. So now that we are in old age. And some say, so Elu Chasid Va'an Shemaisa. Ashrei Ziknuseinu Shekipru Es Yalduseinu Elu Bali Tshuva. That some said that praise lucky that our older years we were able to bring atonement for our youth. Those are the Bali Tshuva. In other words, there's always a debate: who is greater, a tzaddik who never did an aveira, or somebody who experienced an aveira and did tshuva on that aveira and straightened himself out. Usually, to influence people, a Bali Tshuva who's seen the other side has much more, is able to understand better how to relate with people. So Bali Tshuva could be on a higher madrega. The Gemara says that where a Bali Tshuva stands, even tzaddikim can't stand at that place. And the Hasidim Anshimaisha were very happy that they never did any Averis. Elu ve'Elu Omrum, but they both told the people and they made speeches. Ashrei, and there was a lot of young people there, and they warning them. Ashrei mi shaloichata. It's very praiseworthy, somebody who doesn't sin. But don't worry, mi shechata. If you do sin, Yoshev yimchalai Yeshuva, and they'll forgive you. And so it was like a pep talk for youth over there. Tanya, we learned in a brisa. Amru Olav al Hillel Haking Meach Besimchos Beis Hash Zoking, the elder Hillel, when he would celebrate the Simchas Beis Sheva, Amar Cain, he would say like this. He had like a vision. God talked to him, and he said, "Im Anikan." He said in the name of God. God said that the Beis Hamikdash is only worthwhile to come to only if I am here. Hakol Khan, everything is here. Then Aini Kam, if I'm not here, Mikan, who is here? In other words, the Beis Hamikdash is only a worthwhile place if the Shechina is there, God's presence is there. So God is saying, if I'm here, then everything is here. And if I'm not here, because you do Averis, and I remove my presence from here, who's here? So, Hu Haya Oima, he used to say, Hillel used to say, L'mokoim sha'ani hoyev shom ragloi malichus oisi. To the place that I love, that's where my feet bring me. In Tovei El Beisi, God says, if you come to my house, ani avoy El Beischa, I'm going to come to your house and give you a bracha. Im atar loy Tovei El Beisi, but if you don't come to my house, ani loy avoy El Beischa, I'm not coming to your house. It's a very big lesson to try to make the effort to come to showing, because God says, if you come to my house, I'm coming to your house. If you're not coming to my house, I'm not going to come to your house. Shnema, whenever you come to my place, which means come to the base of Mikdash and mention my name, you give me praises. God says, I'm coming to your house and bless you. So that's a bracha for people who make the extra effort to come to shul. Then the Gemara says about Hillel Hazake. Very, very strange thing. Afhu ra'al gugoilas achash shetzofa al pnei hamoyim. Hillel saw a skull of a well-known murderer that he knew, like a really a godfather, basically. He saw that skull shetzofa al pnei hamayim that was floating on the water. Apparently, the guy was decapitated, and his head was floating in the river. So he was killed. Amallah, so Hillel said, Al da'atef atfuch, because you decapitated people and drowned them, that's what happened to you. Umitifayach yutufun. Those that did it to you will ultimately succumb to the same death, that their heads are going to be decapitated and they will be floating on the water. In other words, what he wanted to stress to his students, that there is midah keneged midah. Exactly to the way God runs the world, it's to the hairbreadth. So he stressed that here is an example of where you can see the hairbreadth, measure for measure. This murderer that you all knew, he told the students, was a killer, and he would knock the heads off of his victims and throw them into the water. That's exactly what happened. Very interesting thing. Omar Rabbi Yochanan. Raglohi, the bar inish, the feet of a person are his responsibility. It's, in other words, it's hey, what does that mean? You need to be, that's when they're going to it's something supposed to happen in a certain place, somehow they end up at that place. Not going to know why at that place, but it is. God makes your feet take you. Something over there is supposed to happen to you. So that brings a story. Kushoi. There were two handsome people. They called them Kushoi. Kushoi is like a dark. Hello? Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, yeah. You hear me? Sorry, I just lost you for a second. Back. Let me just take it back. Hold on. Oh boy. Hold on. Everybody. Hold on. Right. Okay. So the Gemara is discussing that somehow your feet take you to a certain place if something is supposed to happen to you there. So the Gemara says, Hani tarti kishoy dekabi kaimi kame shloimet. There were two black people. That means they were handsome people in front of Shlomo Melech. Elichoireth, the one was named Elichoireth, Lachia b'nei Shisha. Soifrim de Shlomo Hava. They were the scribes, the secretaries of Shlomo. Yom Echad, Shlomo HaMelech chazi l'malach hamobes. He saw the angel of death. Tahave ka'otzev. He was depressed. Amalei. So Shlomo HaMelech said to the angel of death, Amai ka'atzevis. Why are you depressed? Amalei, because he said, the it's time that I'm supposed to kill these handsome people that are sitting here. So Shlomo HaMelech thought that these kids, his secretaries, are in big trouble because the angel of death wants to kill them. So what did he do? Masrinu l'she'irim. Shlomo HaMelech gave them over to demons. And these demons, Shlomo HaMelech had control over demons, ghosts, and they took a hold of these two handsome secretaries. Shadrinu l'mechuzah deluz. He wanted to send them to the city on the district of Luz. Luz was an area that it was known that the Malach HaMavis doesn't come to. So, the exact opposite of Shlomo HaMelech's plan backfired. In other words, Shlomo HaMelech wanted to save their life by sending them to Luz. But the opposite happened. When they got to Luz, Shechive, they died. So the next day, Chazi Malach HaMavis to have a kabadach. Shlomo HaMelech saw that the Malach HaMavis was very happy. He said, why are you so happy? Amalei, he said, you got it. I could not kill these people because they were with you. But now that you sent them to Luz, I had permission to kill them there. Amalei, ba'asad deboyamene, taman shar ditine. The place that I needed to take them, that's where you sent them. In other words, the Malach HaMavis had this mission that he's supposed to kill these people, but only if they come to Luz. And they were not in Luz, and that's why he was depressed. But Shlomo HaMelech, not knowing that, sent them to Luz, and that's when the Malach HaMavis killed them. So Mayad Pasach Shlomo v'Amar. Shlomo HaMelech came up and he says, Ragloi debar inish, the feet of a person, in Arvin Bay.
Excuse me, Baruch. You said that the Malach HaMavis didn't go to that city, didn't come to that city.
Yeah, that's good. Rashi says that. But I think right at the entrance of the city, before they got into the city, that's where they died. Very good. See, let's take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, I'm too here. Look, you see the Rashi on the side. I'm tinhu lemchuze deluz. Here is a city. She'ein malach hamoves shoyle pesoicha. There's no malach hamoves there. Kedamrina besoita. So if someone knows where Luz is, it's a nice place to buy a condo, because there's no malach hamoves there. But apparently they didn't make it into the city. They got, they died right at the entrance to the city.
Gotcha. Understood.
So that's what he says. So basically what the Gemara is saying, and the Shlomo HaMelech learned this lesson, that sometimes you end up in a certain place and you blame yourself for going to that place, because if you didn't come to that place, this and this wouldn't have happened. But sometimes your feet cause you to go to that place, and it's not your fault. And that's the way that's the way it is. Your feet are the ones that pay a debt that you owe, and they may take you there even against your will. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Amr Olav Arab Shimon ben Gamliel, his shahaya sameach simchas beis hashoeva. When Rab Shimon ben Gamliel was being happy during the simchas beis hashoeva, hayanoitel shmoina avuka she'ar, he would take 8 torches of fire, and he would throw them up one and juggle them, and none of the torches touched each other. And then the Gemara says, when he would bow, so he wanted to show a trick, like how flexible he is. So he must have had lahavdol, this yoga body, that he was able to bend over forward without bending his knees, and having his thumbs touch the floor, and he, with his face, kiss the ground. It's a type of lahavdol aduasana, which is an intense stretch that if you can look it up, that's almost an impossible thing to do. So that's what the Gemara says. That's what he did, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. And when he would bow, he would put his 2 thumbs into the ground and bend. The noisik as a ritzpa, and he would kiss the floor, v'zoikif, and stand up. And ain't called bria yochol laskem. The Gemara says no human creature can do such a thing. So it's almost like an impossible type of way to flex your body. V'zuhi kida, that is called kida. When vayiktu vayishtachavu kida, that's the word kida. It's a type of intense stretching of the body. So the Gemara says, Levi achvi kida kame de Rebbe. Levi showed Rabbeinu HaKadosh how kida is done. So Levi wanted to demonstrate in front of Rebbe the itla, and when he was doing it, he dislocated his hip, and he was injured. So so the Gemara understood that the reason why he injured himself because he tried to demonstrate this type of yogi position, lahavdol. So the Gemara says, "Valgamile, is that what caused him to be have a dislocated hip?" Rab Lazar said, a person should not say something against God. In other words, like some sharp against God, even if you're in pain. Odom godol hatiach dvarim klape mala. Itla, there was a great person that said a sharp statement to God, and he lost his hip, Umani Levi, because the Gemara says Levi was so upset that God was not responding to the tefillas for rain, and he said a statement that God, it appears to be that you went further into heaven and you have no idea what's going on planet Earth. So that was a harsh statement, and the Gemara says because of that, that's why he dislocated his hip. So how could you say that it was the fact that he was showing Rebbe how to do kida? That was the reason why he dislocated his hip. So the Gemara says, this and this caused it. In other words, once Levi said a sharp thing towards heaven, so to speak, towards God, that caused like a complaint against him. So when Levi was doing something dangerous, this mishap was going to happen. So a person who has let's say a kitrig on him, that they're saying something in heaven about him, has to be careful from doing such dangerous acts, because when a person's in danger, that's when they start examining whether this person should be saved or not. So that's what happened to Levi. Because he was hatiach dvarim klape mala, because he said something sharp to heaven, that's why when he was doing this dangerous position, he dislocated his hip. The Gemara tells us, it's very interesting, a lot of the Tanoim, some of the Tanoim, they need somebody to cheer them up. It says Levi have made the Rabbi. Levi would juggle in front of Rabbi besamni sakis. In other words, pain. Levi
Lost the audio.
Lost the audio.
You got the audio?
Yeah, I think it's just a bad area, bro.
Yeah, I'm going into another area. You hear me now?
Now
hear
it's
me?
better. Yep.
So the Gemara says that, as I explained before, that these people got a little depressed, and therefore they had like a court jester to help them. So Levi would juggle in front of Rabbeinu HaKadosh with 8 knives. Shmuel was juggling in front of the Shvar Malka with 8 cups of wine. Now Abaya, Kame the Rabbah, Abaya would juggle in front of Rabbah the Samne Be'i with 8 eggs. The Amri Law and others say Ba'abah Bei with 4 eggs. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Amr Rabbi Shua ben Chananya. Rabbi Shua ben Chananya says, we never slept in our eyes. Ketzad. Shah Rishayna, he said like this during Sukkot. Sukkot is Chalamoid. Sukkot is what, 6 days? He says he lived in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, and there was no sleep. Ketzad. Shah Rishayna, the first hour of the day, Talmud Shachar. Misham Latfila, then we daven Shachris. Misham the Karba Musaf, then they brought the Karba Musaf. Misham the Tfilas Musafin, then they daven Musaf. Misham the Beis HaMedrash, then we learned. Misham the Chil of Shishdi, then we ate supper. Misham the Tfilas Mincha, then we daven Mincha. Misham Talmud Shaben and Bayim. After the Talmud Shaben and Bayim, Mekavela Simchas Beis Eva. So basically, he said for 6 nights straight, 6 days and 6 nights, we did not sleep. They were always busy in the Beis HaMikdash. So Gemara says, Aini, how could that be? Well, Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, if someone makes a shvua, swears that he's not going to sleep for 3 days, that's an impossible shvua. Malkin, I say, to give him malchus because he made a false shvua. The yashtan out, then we tell him you could go to sleep right away. Your shvua is not effective. So how could Rabbi Shua ben Chananya say that for 6 days we didn't sleep 1 wink? It's impossible. That what he meant to say is we didn't enjoy the taste of sleep. Why? Because we never slept a full a night. We would doze off on the shoulders of each other. So what the Gemara is basically saying is that these parties, these Simchas Beis Sheva, almost lasted all night. So that's a fascinating thing. The Gemara continues. Chamesh Esrei Malas. There were 15 steps in the Beis Hamikdash that led from the Ezras Nashim to the Ezras Yisrael, which was that, through Shar Nikner, we've seen those steps leading up. Amalei Rav Chizda lahuma derabonam tahava komasada ga'adata kamei. Rav Chizda said to this rabbi, who was the one that organized Agadata Gemaras, the kinds of Gemaras that are not halachic Gemaras, but the story in Drashis Gemaras. He said to him, he asked him a question. Amalei, he said like this: Shmielach hani chamesh esrei malas keneged mi amoram David. David HaMelech said Shir HaMalas 15 times in Tehillim. Shir HaMalas. Why did he say 15? Remember, there were 15 steps based on that Shir HaMalas. There was exactly 15 steps in the Ezras Nashim that led to the Ezras Yisrael. So it was corresponding to the Shir HaMalas that's written in Tehillim 15 times. Why did David say 15 times Shir HaMalas? What was the story behind it? Amalei, so the rabbi told Rav Chizda, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This is what Rabbi Yochanan said. When David was digging the drainage system in the Beis Hamikdash, he actually didn't build the Beis Hamikdash, but he prepared the building of the Beis Hamikdash. Shlomo built it, but he was building the drainage system prior to the building. Kafa Tahaima, he hit the wrong. Kafa Tahaima. Unbelievable. The deep, the water that's deep in planet Earth was released and was starting to come up, and it was going to flood the entire planet. So he dug a little bit too deep, and somehow he hit something, and water started to pop out. David, so David said, Chamesh Esrei Malas. He said the Shir HaMalas. He said 15 Shir HaMalas by reading, and they dropped. They were lowered. So Malas means to go up. So the Gemara says, Ihachi Chamesh Esrei Malas. Why do you call it Shir HaMalas? The song of making it rise. Yordis Miboyle. He should say that Shir HaMalas, that he meant that the water should go back down to the core of the planet, not to come up. So why do you call it Shir HaMalas? So we got the story a little wrong. Amalei, the rabbi said, you reminded me, I have the story a little bit wrong, and now I can say it over correctly. Let's repeat the story. When he was digging the Shitin, the drainage system in the Beis Hamikdash, which was where you pour the wine and the water, and it was supposed to go down deep into the core of the earth. He uncovered or hit the deep, and the world was going to be flooded because he went too deep and the water started to rise. So now David had to stop this potential flood. Now David's idea was to write the Shem HaMeforish, God's secret name, on a parchment, and by doing that he could put it over the hole, so to speak, and that will stop the water from coming up. I'm a David, but he didn't know if you're allowed to do that. Mi iked diyada ishar lemichtav shem ach chaspa. We're going to Nun Gimel Amud Sheni. We're just turning the page. Top of Nun Gimel Amud Sheni. He said, does anybody know if I'm allowed to write the Shem HaMeforish on a piece of pottery, the Nishtei b'Tahaima, and we can throw it into the deep, umanach, and that will stop the flood from coming. So nobody said a word. David said, whoever knows if I'm allowed to do this and doesn't give the psak, he should be choked by his throat. In other words, he gave a curse to somebody who knows something, who will be able to give a psak and a ruling that you're permitted to do that. Now, why? It's hard to understand because the whole world is about to be flooded, and David HaMelech is concerned about the writing God's name on a piece of pottery to stop the flood. I mean, it's pekuach nefesh. It's something to think about. Anyway, Nasa Achitophel kal v'chomer ba'atzmoi. The Gemara says that Achitophel, which was the smartest person in the kingdom, that was a friend or a fake friend of David HaMelech. Let's call it a fake friend. And he said like this. He said that you're allowed to do it because ma lasa shalom bein ish li'ishtay. When it comes to make peace between a husband and a wife, Amr Torah, the Torah says by a soita, Shmi nichtav b'kedusha. You write my name. God says, write my name on holiness on a parchment. Yemoch alamayim, and then you dissolve it in the water, and the soita, the soita wife drinks it. Right, as you know what a soita is. Certainly to make peace for the whole world, because the whole world is about to get flooded by this water. Certainly, we're allowed to write God's name to stop the flood from coming. So he piped in, Shara, you are permitted. So the Gemara says, Sav Shem Achaspa, David HaMelech wrote the name of God on this piece of pottery, Ushdei L'Tohim, and threw it into the deep. V'nochas Tohima Shitza Alfe Garmide. And the Tohim, the waters of the deep, went down 16,000 amas. It went too far away from the crust of the earth. So it's too far away. The earth is going to dry out if it doesn't come up. When it went too down, Amar, he says, Kama mid-late fei, it came so down, the earth is going to dry out because the water fell so deep into the core of the planet. So Amar, so he said, Chamesh Esrei Malas, he said 15 Shira Malas, Ba'aske, and he brought the water back up, Chamesa Alfe Garmide, 15,000 amos. Va'oikme, and it's just far from the crust of the earth, Ba'alfe Garmide, 1,000 amos. So basically, it's in a perfect location. So therefore, the world, can the planet can survive and not dry out. So that's the Shir Hamalas. So basically, why did he say Shir Hamalas? Because David HaMelech threw the God's name written on a piece of clay into the water, and it came too deep into the core of the earth. In order to bring back the water closer to the crust of the earth, he said 15 Shir Hamalas. That the water is far away from the crust of the earth. The underground water is 1,000 amas far away from earth. In other words, you have to dig 1,000 amas, then you'll get to the water that's beneath the earth. So the Gemara says that's not true. In the Charina and Purta, we can dig a little bit. You don't have to dig 1,000 amas. Sometimes you could dig 10 amas and you reach water, like a well water. That's not water from the core of the earth. That's water from the Euphrates River, which there are certain tunnels underneath the ground, but really it's Euphrates River. It's water above the ground that you're hitting. You're not hitting the core water that's beneath the earth. Fascinating Gemara. Okay, Gemara continued and says, "V'amdu kahanim b'shar Eliam shiyarid." So they stood on the 10th. The Gemara says that they went to the 10th step and they blew. What does that mean? Did they go to the 10th step and then they blew, or they went down 5 steps and really the 10 steps from the bottom? Rabbi Yirmiyah had a question. That means when they went to the 10th step, that means the Nochas Chamisha, they went down 5, the Koya Asara, and on the 10th step. Oidilma doesn't mean the Nochas Asara, they went down 10 steps, the Koya Chamisha, and on the 5th step. Teku, the Gemara says, this is a question. So basically, that was the part of the Mishnah which describes that them going down the steps, they're going out the eastern gate of the Beis Hamikdash to go to the Mei Shiluach to get water for the Simcha spaces, for the water, for the Nisach HaMayim. But the Gemara says, as they left the Beis Hamikdash with their backsides facing east, this is what the Mishnah says, that they would say, our grandfathers, in other words, the ones that lived in the first Beis Hamikdash, they stuck their behinds out, so to speak, towards the back, towards the Beis Hamikdash, and they bowed to the sun. But us, we bow. Our eyes are to God, and God's eyes is to us. That's what the Mishnah says. Turn Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. The pasuk says that their faces was towards east. Of course, I know that their backsides are towards the temple sanctuary. In other words, if you're facing east, your back is basically where the main sanctuary is, the building is. So why do you have to tell me that their faces were east and their backs were towards the sanctuary? What does the pasuk describe? How bad the Jews were during the first temple, that their backs was towards the Heichal Hashem. They would uncover they would lower their pants, so to speak, and they would defecate, go to the bathroom towards the sanctuary. That's how addicted they were to Avodah Zarah, and they turned basically not only their backs to God, but they actually shamed the whole Beis Hamikdash. But anu l'ka v'l'ka einenu. But we are to God, and God is to us. So the Gemara says, Eini, how could you say God's name twice? For Amar Rabbi Zeir said, Kol ha'omer shema shema. If you say the word Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and then you repeat it right again, it's a bad thing to do that, because it looks like you're expressing your allegiance to two deities. You have to only say Shema one time. It's as if you said thank you twice. In other words, when you say thank you twice, it looks like you're thanking two different deities for your salvation. You're not supposed to do that. So how could they say Onu l'ka, our eyes is to God, L'ka einenu, and God's eyes is to us, to our eyes. So Ella Hachi, this is what they meant to say. Heima mishtachvim kedma, v'anu l'ka, v'einenu l'ka miyachlois. They would bow east, right? But we, our eyes, l'ka anachnu moedim, we give thanks to God. So that's one statement. V'einenu l'ka miyachlois, and our eyes to God are hopeful. Okay, so we thank Hashem for what He's done, and we're hoping for future salvations. So since it's two ideas, you could say God's names twice, because you're saying two different things. Thank you, God, and to your eyes, God, we are hopeful. So that ends the Gemara there. We'll just do the Mishnah and then we'll stop. Ein poichasin. Now you should know that we're all familiar with blowing of the tekiah, trua tekiah, from shofars, right? That you do on Rosh Hashanah. But in the Beis Hamikdash, they would actually blow trumpets. The Kahanim would blow trumpets. That's a Gzeres HaKasav. The pasuk says that they should do so by the Karbonos. And they would also blow a tekiah, trua tekiah. So imagine a trumpet, a kohen taking a trumpet, actually two Kahanim taking trumpets and blowing tekiah, trua tekiah. So how many tekiah, trua tekiyahs were there every day? So the Mishnah says, Ein Pechasim, in the Beis Hamikdash, there was never less than Ne'esr v'achas tekiyas b'mikdash, less than 21 blowings in the Beis Hamikdash. The Ein Moisifin alba ushmaira, but they never had more than 48. What does that mean? That the maximum amount of sounds of blowing from these trumpets was 48. The minimum on a typical day was 21. So the Mishnah explains, the whole yom, on every day, there were 21 blowings in the Beis Hamikdash. Shalosh lepsichas sharim, 3 to open the gates. The Tesha l'tamid shachar, they blew 9 by tamid shachar. The Tesha l'tamid shabein abayim, and 9 by the tamid shabein abayim. So that means on a typical day, you had 3, 9, 9. 18 plus 3 is 21. Uva musafin, on the days that they had musaf, let's say on a Shabbos, they added another 9. So now, let's say on a Shabbos day, again, we walked into the Beis Hamikdash, you think, like Havda, we've said this before, that you think you're walking into a Reform synagogue, Havda. But they blew trumpets, because the pasuk says you have to blow trumpets when you're bringing these karbanos. So on a Shabbos day, they blew 30 sounds from the trumpets on a typical Shabbos day. Uve Erev Shabbos, Hayim and Sheish. On a typical Friday, they actually had 6 trumpets, 6 sounds blowing. Why 6? Shalosh lahavdil asaham mim malacha, 3 to stop the people from doing work. Ushalosh lahavdil ben kodesh lechoel, and 3 more to tell people to now starts the Shabbos. And if you're going to do work, then you're going to be chayiv skila. It's like what we have in Lawrence, in the 5 towns, where they blow 15 minutes before Shabbos, and then by candle lighting, they blow again. So that is a remnants, is similar, and that's, I think, universal. That's similar to what was done in the Beis Hamikdash on a typical Friday. So the Gemara says, the Mishnah concludes, Erev Shabbos shebesoich Chag. You have Erev Shabbos in middle of Sukkot. That was the day that in the Beis Hamikdash they blew the most. They blew the most sounds. Hayasham Arbaim Ushmaina. You had 48. Shalosh l'psichas Hasham. 3 to open the Beis Hamikdash. Shalosh l'shar Elyon. Shalosh l'shar Tachtay. From the upper gate and the lower gate. Shalosh l'milo Hamayim. To fill the water up for what they blew Tkiya, Trua Tkiya, when they were filling the water up from the Mei Shaluach. And when they're pouring the water of the Nisach HaMayim on the Mizbeach, they blew another Tkiya, Trua Tkiya. Teisha l'Tomash HaShachav, Teisha l'Tomash HaBayim, Teisha l'Musafim, Sholosh l'Havdes Amim Namlocha, V'Sholosh l'Havdel Ben Kodesh l'Choel. So what the Mishnah just concluded is that on an Erev Shabbos, that you have a Musaf, and it's the middle of Sukkot where you're going to do extra blowings for the job of everybody celebrating, going out, leaving the Beis Hamikdash, going to the spring Mei Shaluach to draw water for the Nisach HaMayim. They blew extra sounds from that trumpet, and as a total for that day was 48. So the minimum on a typical day was 21. On Shabbos you blew 30. On Erev Shabbos B'Soich Chag, the Erev Shabbos in the middle of Sukkot, you had 48. And that's, we'll continue with the Gemara, Be'ez Hashem, tomorrow, Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis. Okay.
Well, quick question. You
Yeah.
said at the beginning that Shlomo Melech had 2 secretaries, good looking, they were black. Do you think they were black for a reason, that he picked them for a reason, or it was just a random thing?
That's a very important question. So Rashi says that really in the Chumash, the way they describe a black person, like the Chumash says that the wife of Moshe was beautiful, but the way it's described is Tzipporah was black. That just like everybody agrees black is black, so everybody would agree that Moshe's wife Tzipporah was beautiful. So it's like a slang way to say that if you want to say somebody is beautiful, you say they're black. Black is beautiful, right? It's like there's no argument on it. So when the Gemara wants to say that these were handsome people, Hani Kishoy, they were very, very handsome. And my point is that that's why Shlomo got this whole thing mixed up. He thought that the Malach HaMavis didn't want to kill them because they're so beautiful. They're so handsome. He was so sad that he couldn't kill them because he didn't want to kill them because they were so handsome. But really, else he couldn't kill them. He was sad because they were in the wrong place.
And they were black.
Were they black? It doesn't mean they were black. It means that
They were good
very,
looking.
very
They were
They
handsome.
were good looking, and this is, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
This is the way
Because you can't make a mistake. Black is black.
Right. Got you.
Right. No one ever said you see a black person and say, "Oh, that's white." Maybe Michael Jackson, but most people, when they're black, you say they're black.
Yeah.
So when people saw Moshe, the Chumash says Moshe Rabbeinu's wife was a Kushi, was a black.
Right,
What does it mean?
right.
The Rashi says it was nobody disagreed that this was a beautiful woman.
You know, the term Kushi in Hebrew is sort of like a derogatory way of referring to a black person, a Kushi, you know.
Right.
So,
Right.
anyways,
Okay.
very interesting Gemara, very interesting, fascinating, fascinating Gemara.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really, this whole thing about Sukkot is fascinating, and why the Simchas Beis Shoeva was done Sukkot, and the fact that all the nations of the world will celebrate together. That's where the festivities. I think there's a lot of agadita that we don't even know, a lot of mystical things that we don't know because of this. It's an amazing thing.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we basically learned Kabbalah today, because what does that mean? David HaMelech dug into the ground and he hit the core of the earth, and the water started to come up, and it was going to flood planet Earth. I mean, it's like, it's a good, we can't even imagine that it has. So it's Kabbalah things. So that's
there is. Yeah, it's very deep, very deep. Not to be no pun intended, but it was very deep.
Yeah, right.
Moshe Rabbeinu, yeah.
Okay, tomorrow I'll have my regular setup.
Okay, looking forward to it, Baruch. Thank you.
Thank you, Baruch. Gute Nacht.